Hi, I'm Dave. Welcome back. Today, following on from a previous video, I want to talk a little bit more about the differences between self-defense, revenge, and retribution. Before I do, you know the score. Be sure to smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, do so now, and click on the bell to stay notified of my future content. So, moving on. What do I mean revenge, retribution, and self-defense? They are very different, and I know for some people it can be very difficult to understand the difference between them. So that's what I want to try and do today. Now, this does follow from a video I did before. I talked about justifying violence. I mentioned self-defense in that, and this is what led me on to this. And trying to do a little bit of research on it, I ended up going down the rabbit hole. Yeah, and all the different philosophies that go behind all these, but I want to try and summarise it for you today as best I can, just to try and help you. So I'm going to start off with retribution and revenge. I'm going to finish off with self-defense, so please stay till the end, because if you ever do need to defend yourself, then this could be useful for you. So what is retribution? What is revenge? Retribution, when you look at all the information that's out there and you start looking at the philosophies behind it, retribution essentially is the act of getting some form of punishment for an act that's been done against you. Again, you go a little bit more detail, and it's generally in terms of justice. So retribution is getting something done to a person for wronging you, and it should be something that's been mutually agreed upon as being something that is an equivalent. This is where laws come from, court convictions. So if somebody assaults you, the court give a punishment which they deem to be equivalent to make up for the damage that's been done to you. So obviously the worse the assault, the worse the punishment. Okay, go from fines up to imprisonment. So this is retribution. Now, of course, you can go around the world in different countries, different cultures. Everyone's got their own ideas of what is justice for what. Okay, here in the UK we don't have capital punishment, and I fully agree with that. I don't believe there's any justification for capital punishment. But again, around the world, everyone's got their own policies on this and their own feelings on it. Now, retribution can be personal. So if somebody does something to you, you may seek retribution against them, and it could be something as simple as, well, you've done this to me, I want you to do something, or want something to happen to you in order to make up for it. And this goes on, the whole eye for an eye making the whole world blind, yeah? Retribution, does it solve anything? No, it doesn't solve anything. It just gives a person this sense that somebody did something wrong to them, so they've had something done back to them. It doesn't really achieve anything, it doesn't solve anything. It just acts more as, it's consequent. It's something that makes you not want to do something wrong because of the consequences, the retributions that will come against you. Okay, for me personally, I don't think that's the way to live. I don't think that's the way for society to move forward. I think it's much more important for people to do nice things to each other, because nice things get nice things in return, as opposed to the only reason I don't do bad things to people is because something bad might happen to me. They sound kind of similar, but very different in my eyes. Okay, I would rather act nicely in order to get that reciprocity, rather than not act badly through fear of reciprocity. Again, it's a further discussion for later. Revenge. Revenge tends to be more personal than retribution. So, revenge is far more personal to us, and it tends to be without limit. So whereas retribution tends to have that balance, that proportionality of, rightly or wrongly, the eye for the eye thing. If you punch me, I'll punch you. Yeah. If you steal from me, then I will take it to court, and the courts will give you a fine. Yeah. Or even if it's restorative, you do this to me and they'll make you pay me for the damage you caused. Yeah. This is retribution. But revenge tends to be personal, and it tends to be without limits. This is where a lot of people fall very, very foul of the law when it comes to thinking they're defending themselves. Somebody punched me, therefore I broke their legs. And yes, there are some YouTubers out there teaching self-defense who will say to you, this person has just punched me, I'm going to rip X, Y or Z off their body and force feed it to them. It's great entertainment. In reality, you just get yourself in more trouble than that person would have done. So revenge does not solve anything. Revenge, in fact, can make you cross that line and become the offender. Okay, this is a very difficult and philosophical question about revenge and the rights and wrongs of it. So I don't have the time in a 10 to 20 minute video in order to go into the ins and outs and rights and wrongs. I'm here to talk about the difference. And here in the UK, if you go out and you seek revenge for something, you may find yourself being the one who falls more foul of the law than the person who did the act to you in the first place. Okay, so this whole thing of they punched me so I did something back, often it goes way too far. Okay, seeking that level, even if you think it's retribution, even if you think they punched me, I'm going to seek that immediate proportional retribution. They punch me, I'm going to punch them. Well, now you've both offended. Now you both get into trouble. Yeah, revenge, going further than that, they punched me so I kneecap them. Yeah, they punched me, therefore I got all my mates together and we jumped them in the street and gave them a beating. Can you see the difference? This is what happened with revenge. It goes way over the top. And it's not just about assaults. People, somebody stole from us or burnt the house down. You see what I'm talking about. Revenge is no good for anybody. It's great for the movies. It's great for having your John Wicks, your revenge movies and all this other stuff. It's great entertainment in the fictional world. In reality, it does nothing to solve anything and just makes situations worse. Okay, so that brings me on then to self-defense. And this is where I say a lot of people seem to get mixed up with self-defense, retribution and revenge. And certainly in my experience, when you speak to somebody, why did you assault this person? Their answer to you is always, well, they hit me. Okay, so why'd you hit me? Let's say it's self-defense. Okay, explain it in more detail. They hit me, so I hit them. And the number of people who actually go through the criminal justice system claiming self-defense when their entire argument is one of a sense of retribution, which tends to go over the line into revenge. Yeah, this is not self-defense. Self-defense is when you do something in order to prevent something happening to you, or something worse happening to you. Okay? You don't have to wait for somebody to hit you for you to defend yourself. This is one of those right-wing conspiracy things that they put out there saying the left wing don't want you to defend yourself. Absolute rubbish. Okay? Self-defense is you acting to defend yourself from harm. And sometimes you have to cause harm to another person in order to prevent a greater harm happening to you. And as I said, you don't have to wait for the harm to be caused to you to defend yourself. Okay? Let's put this into some kind of perspective. Somebody comes up to you and raises a fist. You don't have to wait for that fist to hit you before you do anything. Okay? If you have no other options, you've got no escape route, dialogue has already failed, then using force in order to defend yourself may be the only way. And if a preemptive strike is the only way to stop you getting hit, then sometimes so be it. Okay? But, as I said, you have to have this proportionality. Because even from a preemptive point of view, it can turn into revenge. This person lifts a fist up to hit you. They've got all the facial expressions, they've got all the body language, the signs of aggression, all the indicators that this punch is definitely coming. And you strike preemptively in order to prevent that attack, but then you don't stop. Well, they threatened me, so I went X, Y, and Z on them. Yeah? This now goes over self-defense and goes past any kind of proportionality for retribution becomes revenge again, just for the threat. You've now committed this. It can, again, the whole other arguments that we can go into. Okay, so if you are, let's, without drawing stereotypes, right? If you were a 5 foot tall woman of very slight build and no martial arts or combat training whatsoever, and you get attacked by a 7 foot monstrosity of a man who's built like Arnold Schwarzenegger and trained in martial arts, giving them a punch and running off might not necessarily be what protects you if that person has the intention to continue to come after you. Sometimes you have to up that ante because the risk level is different, the threat level is different. Okay, so one person's justification is going to be very different to another's, and this is what I said on another video. Only the person can justify their own use of force. Okay, but you know, again, if you've defended yourself and you have to make sure that person doesn't get up to continue to chase you and attack you again, then you have to. But you've got to know where to draw that line, and for everybody it's different. Okay, but as I said, you, in order to justify it, you need to understand that difference. Am I still hitting this person because if I stop they will do something worse to me? Or am I still hitting this person now just because I feel good hitting them because they did something to me? That's the question you have to ask yourself. This is now revenge, okay? Retribution has its place, but this is why we have the justice system. Sometimes it's flawed, but the justice system is there to seek some form of retribution in a balanced, proportionate and non-biased way, whereas revenge, way over the top, far too personal, and it's hard for the individual to see when to stop. Self-defense is when you act in order to prevent harm to yourself or another, or protect harm, prevent harm from to property. So self-defense is very different to retribution and revenge, and you've got to run these scenarios through your head. If you've had the need to strike somebody or use a lock or put somebody on the floor, then you need to look back at yourself and you need to say, did I stop at the right time? Did I go too far? Did I do the right thing? Did I act in a way that was justifiable and proportionate? Now sometimes you can do this with hindsight and you look back and you think, maybe I went too far, but you've got to say at that time that it happened, how did I feel? If I was just striking out of anger, then that's something that you need to change in yourself. If you were definitely striking or locking or putting people on the floor, and you at the time you definitely had this idea, this feeling, this this belief that you're about to imminently become subject to violence, then there's your self-defense. Okay? It's hard to justify things retrospectively because you can't go back and change it. Okay? But if you get this into your system, if you start to understand those differences, then you will act better in the future. And even if you look back with retrospect and you say, actually, do you know what? Maybe I went too far. Maybe I didn't have to hit them that hard. Maybe I didn't need to put that particular lock on. Yeah? If you can then say, at the time, I believed it was necessary in that split second, not in a second, that moment, I believed it necessary, then there's your justification. And by retrospectively looking at it, then maybe you can act differently next time. But it does all come down to what you feel at the time. So just to keep going over, I'm not going to keep going over the same point again and again and again, okay? But just to finish it off, self-defense is acting in self-defense in order to prevent you becoming subject to harm, or another person coming to harm, or property coming to harm. And it stops at the point that the threat ends. Retribution is a punishment visited on them after the act and should be proportionate to what they have done. I don't recommend this on a personal level. I do always recommend that it's done through the proper channels. Therefore, it is balanced and unbiased. Okay. Revenge is when you take it personally and you go over the top and you go way too far, or it risks going too far and over the top. Okay, so I hope this helps your understanding, and you can look back at anything that you've been through in the past and you can have a look and think, was I acting in self-defense at that point? Did I believe I was in self-defense at that point? Or was it anger and revenge? Okay, I will leave that with you guys. Keep practicing whatever martial arts you do, whatever self-defense you do, or even if you don't, I want you to understand that you can defend yourself, and I want you to understand those differences. Okay, so as I said, I'll leave it with you, mull it over, think on it, look it up, research it, read up the philosophical differences between retribution, revenge and self-defense. Okay, it's interesting reading. And as always, if you haven't done so already, please like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and do click the bell to stay notified, and I'll see you in the next video.